Hi everyone, welcome to my video series on test-driven development. Part one of the series is on non-TDD development, non-test driven. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through the steps involved in development when you don't do test-driven. And then we're going to talk about some of the challenges that come up from this. Now, I've written the steps down here. The steps are actually somewhat similar to test-driven, but they're in a different order. So in my example, step one is to receive a development task. So my task, in this case, is contrived. It will be add up a series of numbers. Okay? So development tasks come from a variety of sources. They can come from bugs, right? There's a bug that I have to make a fix for, so I have to implement something. It could be a new feature. It could be a subtask of something else that I'm doing. In this case, this is probably something like a subtask. I'm building some more complex logic, and I just need something that adds up a list of numbers, a series of numbers. So I've got my development task, and in non-TDD development, I will immediately start thinking, how can I implement this? And so step two is solution. Well, I'm going to write a function called add up, okay, and it takes one parameter called numbers, and I'm going to do this in a clever way. I'm going to write a reducer function, so numbers.reduce, so what does it do? It iterates over the series of numbers, and it accumulates it adds the next value to the accumulator starting at 0. Believe me, that adds up the numbers. And we're going to find out. So I've written a solution, and I think it works, but since I'm a responsible developer, I'm going to check the solution. So step 3 is check. How will I check it? I could write tests, I could use some frameworks, I could do a debugging. I'm going to do the poor man's test, which is output to the console, and I'm going to put in a couple of scenarios. So I'm going to add up 1 and 2, and I'm going to hope that the console will output 3. And since negative numbers might come in as well, I'm going to say -1 and 1, and I'm going to hope that equals 0. Okay, does that sound reasonable? So I've got my checks, but I haven't actually run them yet. So now I need to look at the console and press run, and I get 3 and I get 0. So I am happy. It works. Since I've done all my homework, right? I've checked if my thing actually works. Now I need to push it into the code repository. So I push it in, now my fellow developers can use it, it can go to production, it goes through our build chain and whatever is set up, and it can be used anywhere. Now that seems very logical, very simple and straightforward, and honestly it's the natural way to program, but there are a lot of challenges involved. Okay, so we're going to go through a couple of those challenges, certainly not a comprehensive list. First challenge is development tasks are typically unclear or based on single scenarios. So my task, while it might have seemed clear, is based on a single scenario. So add up a series of numbers. It's assuming, right, the implicit assumption is that the function will receive a list of numbers. Okay, and I have built that assumption in here. I haven't actually tested it. Now, the whole goal of programming, well, not the whole goal, but one of the ways that programming is made efficient is by reusing code. If I build a function that only satisfies one single scenario, then my code is not very reusable, which means that the next time somebody comes around and wants to build a function and wants to use, they have a similar scenario, but it doesn't fit into my scope, they will write a new function, add up 2, or add up more, and that's not an efficient way to work. It's better to have one function that's reusable across scenarios. Okay, So the second issue is that if I don't have a properly defined task, I risk spending a lot of time hunting for solutions when I don't really know what I want. So I'll be coding a lot, and coding takes a lot of time when my time was better be spent defining the problem better. I better spent, whiteboarding or doing pseudocode or something like that. And so this lack of focus leads to a lot of wasted effort and inefficiency. Third problem is that even though I checked my solution, it was a self-check. And since I checked it after I already wrote it, I want to believe that I'm smart and that I wrote it right the first time. I chose scenarios. I'm incentivized to choose scenarios which fit the scope that I have decided on for my function, right? There are scenarios that will not work, but I did not choose them. I was not incentivized to test them or check them because it didn't fit my scope, right? What if a non-number got passed into this function? It would break. It would give you some nonsense out. And that's the issue with testing after the fact. I'm incentivized to do less work, to check less thoroughly. And the fourth on my list, fourth challenge, is lack of enforcement at code repository level. So this is basically the push issue. If I can push and get my code accepted without having proper testing in place, it means that every other developer can do the same thing, which means that we're all making inefficient, non-reusable code and polluting the code base with this stuff, which confuses each other and makes it more difficult to work on our project. Okay, so the issues are multiplied by, if I can do it, everybody else can do it. So the issue is multiplied across the project. So those are some of the key challenges that TDD will address. So in subsequent videos, we'll talk about how those are overcome.